Hi, I'm Chloe Canning. Welcome back for Season 2 on Lead with Courage. Illuminate Leadership acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, which we would call this podcast the Yagara and Terrible People. We pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging.
Welcome to Lead with Courage, the podcast that celebrates the bold and inspiring stories of leaders making a difference. We're your hosts, Andy and Cherie Canning, and together we'll dive into the minds of the trailblazers, the risk takers, and those who embrace life with a growth mindset.
Flight Centre is one of the most recognised brands in Australia, and today we have an incredibly special guest. We have one of the founders of Flight Centre, Graham, affectionately known as Skroo Turner. Now, this is the first and last time you'll hear my voice on this podcast, as unfortunately I missed this recording, but I know that Cherie was absolutely fangirling, and a lot of you know that Cherie and I used to work for Flight Centre, and I know it was just such a joy for her to be able to sit there with Skroo and pick apart his brain of so many years in the business and so much experience and what it's like navigating through COVID times. So hope you sit back and relax and enjoy this one.
Skroo Turner, welcome to the Lead with Courage podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Cherie.
It's so nice to be back in here. It's a bit of a reunion coming back into head office. Very exciting to be here and thrilled to have you have a chat with us today. There's no Andy, so it's just me, so I hope that's going to be okay for you.
Yeah, sure.
But really, there's so much I'd love to go through and ask you about today. I guess the history of the business, your own personal motivations, your own lessons as a founder and as a CEO, and also the future of travel and how things are post-COVID for Flight Centre. Before we jump into it all, though, we always ask our guests, what does the expression lead with courage mean to you? So I'm just putting you on the spot with that one. But what does it mean to you to lead with courage?
I guess it's, don't hold back. Make sure that you're basically in charge of what's happening in the business. And, events don't, that you have some control over the events and what happens in the business.
Yeah, beautiful. And there are a few events in your time as a CEO and a founder of, co-founder of a travel company. I think when I was in Flight Centre, 17 years I was here, and we used to always share stories of like the GFC and the Cold War and all of these ups and downs, but there's nothing really that's probably knocked the business around as COVID. But can you tell us about early days? So if I'm right, I think Flight Centre started when I was born, 81, 82, is that right?
Yeah, well, I suppose just going back to, all the things that can go wrong, and COVID obviously was one. I think you get to the stage where you know business isn't life and death.
Yeah.
Not like it is in a war or something like that. And so some of these problems you go through obviously is something that you get used to, and in the end it's business. Unfortunately, it's not always the same for everyone in the business. But yeah, we started essentially started Top Deck Flight Centre in the Prudential Arcade off Martin Place in 1982 with Dave Tonkin. We were obviously in Top Deck from 1973 and had Top Deck shops in Australia and New Zealand, and this sort of how we morphed. My son Matt, who you know, was born in 81, and we came back to Australia for that, and that's where we started. And I was mainly looking after Top Deck, the bookings out of Australia, but then Dave Tonkin, who was a friend of mine in London, he worked for us in London for some time. He was relatively young, even compared to us, but he ran a bucket shop in London called the Flight Shop, and I knew he was good because he'd worked for us, and so I convinced him to come in 50-50 with Top Deck Travel. In the Sydney Flight Centre, and he called it Sydney Flight Centre. He made about something over $90,000 in the first year, and that was quite a lot in those days.
Yeah.
And he decided, I know we had an agreement, it's on one piece of paper, and the paper basically said that it's a 50-50 partnership between Dave Tonkin and Top Deck Travel, and Dave does all the work. Top Deck takes half the profit.
And he signed it.
Yeah, and after about a year, he said, well, look, I want to buy you out because I'm doing all the work and you're getting half the profit. So he bought us out. I don't know exactly how much, but it was probably our half share was 150,000 or something like that. And that's when we started opening more flight shops, flight centres in Brisbane Flight Centre and the flight shop in Melbourne. And later on in Sydney, we did a flight centre there too. So that's how it started.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I remember a story, if I'm right, it might have been like 86 or 87-ish, where you brought all the managers or the leaders of the businesses and the different stores together and started talking about how do we really have, I guess, what we now know today in the flight centre philosophies is one best way, but how do we drive everyone? You're saying flight centre, flight shop, all the different names. To my knowledge, the way everyone advertised was they all did their own advertising in their local newspapers back then. Do you remember that part of the story? And how important was that, do you think, for the brand?
Yeah, I can vaguely remember. We went, I think we had about 30 businesses then and 30 partners who generally had somewhere between 20 and 30% of the business. And we were in Bangkok at a leaders conference at the Monty Inn, I think it was. I don't know whether it still exists, but Jeff Harris got everyone to put their business cards on the table, and we had 30 totally different business cards. Generally, totally different names. There were a few flight centres, like Brisbane Flight Centre. There were a couple of flight shops and a whole range of other things because everyone chose their own name. So that's that started for us to standardise everywhere, but it took a couple of years. It wasn't until the late 80s that we called our company Flight Centres International.
Right.
And generally it was such and such flight centre, Aspley Flight Centre or Brisbane Flight Centre or Melbourne Flight Centre.
Yeah.
Which changed again in the early 90s when we just dropped the location and just became Flight Centre and later became Flight Centre Proprietary Limited. And then before floating in 1995, November 95, I think it was, and we became Flight Centre Limited. And as you know now, we changed again. We're now Flight Centre Travel Group.
Flight Centre Travel Group. When did that change come?
I think it was about 2015.
I was going to say about 15, 16. Yeah, beautiful. I love hearing you talk about the story, and I think I've read it in the flight set. Wow, what's the book around? Not Screw the Rules one, but the Top Deck Days. I'm forgetting the third, like the one about flight centre story. Family Village Tribe book. Yeah. You tell a story about, I guess, going public and people investing in the business. And what do you remember from that time?
Yeah, well, it was quite an exciting time. I mean, we were in 1994, 95. We made, I think, about 13 million profit before tax. And that's the year we floated. And I think our capitalisation was about 65 million after we'd floated. And we had originally probably about 60 or 70 million shares. Staff could buy up to $50,000 worth of shares at 85 cents. And I think the public was 95 cents. And within a pretty short time, it was up to about $1.25 or so. And that first year, we went from 13 million profit to 19 million profit. So it was a pretty good story, and it's obviously a long time ago now.
Yeah.
But, nearly 30 years. So it's there's been a lot of water under the bridge since we went public. Yeah,
a lot of stories, a lot of experiences. One thing that I don't know, maybe I don't know enough about a million other businesses, but one thing I see here at Flight Centre that I don't always see in other businesses is the amount of buy-in. And I don't just mean external shares if it's a public company, but the setup here with ownership. And if we go back as another company philosophy around leaders, store managers, area managers, whatever the role, the title, but over the years, the ability for leaders to buy into the business. And I remember you've said, or you've been quoted in the early days around, 80, what is it, like 100% of nothing is still nothing. And so the importance of getting people's buy-in, I believe is something really unique here at Flight Centre. Do you want to share kind of how that's evolved or how it all sits these days?
Yeah, well, our core values are irreverence, which some people question a bit, and egalitarianism and ownership. And the ownership's been very important. It's the way we've grown. And obviously COVID had a big impact on that because people who did have ownership in businesses and that the company itself had to prop that up. And so some of these things have changed a little bit post-COVID. But it's certainly one of the things I believe in. Bear in mind now we're in 26 or 27 countries, and it's a really important to how we run those 26, 27 countries. Quite a few of them are in Europe, and if you look at the Flight Centre brand, it's only in five countries now, whereas FCM is in 26 countries. So,
wow.
It does vary a little bit the type of business as well, but ownership will always be important to us. When we had shareholding, actual shareholding in each shop in the late 80s, one of the problems came at one stage. I think we had 70 or 80 different companies. So that's when we introduced the business ownership scheme, which which was a way we could do that much more easily, just under one or two entities, and they ran as a sort of a debenture system, a return on debenture. But as far as people were concerned, that just mirrors ownership.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember my first team leader role was at Currimundi Flight Centre, and I had my first BOS, and it was a brand new store. Everyone told me don't go there because it'd be Curra no money, but it was a success. And I think looking back on it, it cost next to nothing to buy into it, but the returns for a 23-year-old, thought I was absolutely killing it in life, and then moved down to Caloundra and had the opportunity to buy into there, and it was so incredibly motivating.
Yeah, and it does vary. It's not for everyone because people do have to put up a certain amount of money, or they get a loan from. I think we had a loan arrangement with one of the banks generally, and that's how we started off. And in the early days, you could have 3 or 4 BOSs, and so quite a few people made a lot of money. And obviously, in the early days, it was a bricks and mortar travel agency was if you got it right and you had the right deals with the right airlines, it was very profitable.
Yeah, and one thing that strikes me now, and I know that times have changed with technology and the way that life is in post-COVID world that we're in, but one thing that was back then and I think still is now, and it's something that I hold very dear to my time here at Flight Centre, was the importance of developing the people in your team, because I think from the concept, if I have taken it on right, is that when you bought your first BOS in the store there as a team leader or a store manager, when you move on, the whole idea was to get your, second in charge or your 2IC or your assistant manager, the person behind you, to step up and take over, and really about developing people from within. And leaving, I was chatting to a few people saying we're having this conversation with you today. I'm like, what should I speak to Skroo about? And so many people have said, what stands out more than anything is that development in people, the training, the opportunities, but just that, I guess, the importance and genuine focus on developing people. Like, what does that all mean to you? And do you feel as passionate about it now as you always have? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously COVID, COVID, and we'll probably get to that, but we had 21,000 people in 2019, just pre-COVID, and we had to get down to around the 6,500. So we had to lose a lot of very experienced, very skilled people. So we're still building that back up. But, I think it's the same in any business. It's about the people that you you employ in the first place, but also how they're motivated and trained in the expertise in that as well. And so that's obviously absolutely crucial. And I don't think you'll get many successful businesses not to realise that the first thing you've got to get right is your people, particularly your people at the front line, but obviously also your leadership as well. And that's why establishing the right culture and the right level of ownership, has been absolutely crucial. And we're obviously coming back from COVID now, but it's going to be a couple of years, as I think I was saying, about 5 years, where we're going to be behind pre-COVID, or 4 years from pre-COVID, but it'll be 10 years before we get back to trading where we would have been without COVID. So it's quite a stretch, and it's really challenged some of those basic tenets, which is ownership's a very important part of it.
Yeah. Can you there's so many things I'd love to pick your brain over the years, but I think pre-COVID, post-COVID, and that topic is so relevant right now and so interesting. I remember, I don't know if you would have spoken to so many people at this time, and it's not because you don't have a good memory, but you were speaking to so many people. But I will never forget, it was that day that, maybe 10,000 of us or close to it, you'd probably know the numbers more than me, got the call to say we're on the indefinite stand down, and no one in the world knew what was going on. So there was a lot of uncertainty. And I happened to get lucky getting one of those jobs in the call centre that was set up here in the building for the next 7 months. And I remember seeing you up here at Mofo's in the cafe at the top of head office. And I said to you, how are you? And you were like, oh, how are you? And all you just worried. I think your concern went straight back to, how am I? And I'm like, I'm okay. Like, we're here. We've got some income. We'll be all right. But I remember seeing you and thinking, my heart broke for you. I think your heart was breaking for everyone else, but my heart broke for you because you have built this business, you and many other amazing humans, for 4 decades, and just to see this overnight devastation to the workforce, like, how was that for you?
Yeah, it was hard, but if you see that room there, we're in the library now, of course, but the room next door was our war room.
War room, yeah.
And so we set that up, and it took us, we went from, our costs were $230 million a month.
Mm-hmm. Globally,
yeah. And our income was about 250 to 60 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we went almost overnight to practically zero income. But obviously a lot of our costs still were there. So we had to get our leadership team to pull together a plan very quickly to get our costs down to around the 65 million a month. And that's where obviously we had to let a lot of people go. And obviously it was a terrible time for the leadership team, but we also had the challenge of survival, which was quite a motivating force. And that's where that room is where it all happened in the first month or 5 weeks, I think, before we raised the money. And obviously shareholders were heavily diluted, but we got the support of our banks, a couple of the major banks, and raised the capital. And
what did you raise again? It's public information, isn't it, what you raised, or no?
Yeah, I think initially we raised about 700 or 800 million, but we did have about 1.3 billion in the bank when COVID hit.
That's helpful.
A certain amount of that, of course, was client funds. So as time went on, I think we refunded something like $2.5 billion over, and quite a bit of that were bookings with airlines and other operators. But we went from booking travel for nearly 12 months of refunding travel, and it was largely the operational leaders who had to do all the hard work in terms of standing people down, and it was hard for them more so than myself. A lot of people were friends, and and they would have known a lot of the people they had to let go.
Yeah, and it was it's just the impossible, isn't it? I've often people say, "Oh, you started your own business. Is that always a goal?" I said, "Oh, if it hadn't have been for COVID, I don't think I would have ever left this beautiful place." Now I look at it and I'm deeply grateful for where I'm at and how things have turned out. But it's it was just somewhere that so many of us, we never dreamt of leaving, but that's life sometimes.
Yeah, we have a lot of people. You mentioned you were here 17 years, or we do have a lot of people all the time celebrating at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And Mel obviously left last year after 36 years. So
Wow. And Fee Taylor was my last leader here, and she'd be close, I think, the same time as Mel, 30 odd years.
Well, there's someone yesterday, their 29th year, and Fee would be around that. I think she's around over 30 years.
Yeah, incredible, that duration. How did you get, personally for you, how did you get yourself through that time?
Look, I found it a quite an interesting challenge. We were lucky. Obviously I've been in business for a long time, and so I wasn't worried about my survival financially. But it was you could say an interesting challenge, but it was a challenge, and we had a very experienced leadership team that, particularly in Treasury and in our CFOs and other financial services we had. So we never had any doubt that we wouldn't survive, but it was very challenging. And, as I said, the existing shareholders got heavily diluted because of the capital raising. But in the war room, for the first couple of months, we were here nearly every day from early in the morning till, one of the highlights at about 5 o'clock, we'd hear the clinking of bottles and the rosé and gnarly dudes wine would be delivered. So that was
only at 5 o'clock? I don't really believe you.
Yeah, it might have been 4 o'clock sometimes.
I feel that time for you, you're running, cycling, like from your personal fitness, and that's still something, did that get you through personally, or did you find time for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've always got to find time for that sort of thing. And
did touch still happen? Or you probably couldn't in COVID times, not allowed.
Well, it's interesting because there was we were in the middle of a lockdown early on, and you were only allowed to exercise in theory with one other person. And I can remember, and this only happened once or twice, Todd and I going down to Musgrave Park where we used to play touch and having a game of foursome back, which is, kicking to each other. And this other random guy, he was a backpacker from Italy, turned up and joined us. So we were actually breaking the law, but
maybe not the only. Bending the law over the years in Flight Centre, starting new ways of doing things. But
we did, and we started touch again very early, and when we weren't meant to. And I remember quite often you'd see people just scattering everywhere, and you'd look up and there's 2 or 3 policemen walking down the road near the park, and so everyone would suddenly disappear out of the touch footage.
There'd just be you and Todd standing there. What's happened? Oh, classic. Well, on a different note, 99 Bikes and the pedal group just went ballistic at that time, which is obviously a family business, and your son Matt leads and runs that business. So it was good for bikes.
Yeah, well, Jude's Spices Retreats too did quite well during that period, and the bikes did brilliantly. They ended up but being quite overstocked once the COVID died down. There were some serious challenges, and I think right around Australia or around the world with bike shops. During COVID you couldn't get stock, and then suddenly there was a flood of stock coming in. It used to take, some of the orders took 2 years to be delivered during COVID, and then after COVID that went down to 2 weeks. So you can imagine what happened then.
Well, I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, but my husband Andy worked there from, I think, mid 2020 for about 18 months, and in the beginning in category management, getting product in. So it was just the directive was buy whatever we can get our hands on, and then in time obviously that had to change. But it was absolutely insane. The lack of supply, and then if you did have anything, that customers were just going crazy for it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's quite a few people in Flight Centre's got jobs at 99 Bikes or Advanced Traders, and there's a reasonable number of them still there. Actually,
it's brilliant. I remember actually seeing Jude, and we had a bit of a giggle with spices. She said, usually how spices are going doesn't rate a mention with Flight Centre or Pedal Group. She said, but during COVID, my business was absolutely booming when people they were forced to travel into their own backyard, and so then they were discovering more incredible places in southeast Queensland in particular. But it's funny how the different waves of business and what people are focused on.
Yeah, and we did during COVID, during the lockdowns and the border closures, we did 2 trips to London, and you had to do 2 weeks quarantine, obviously, when you're back, which I must admit is pretty funny. You have to quarantine even when you test negative, maybe. But we did do 2 weeks in one of the New South Wales spices, Sangoma. So that was
tough, really tough. Those 2 weeks.
Because
the Blue Mountains.
That's the Blue Mountains, and they had to close for because of some COVID thing, and the chef prepared 2 weeks of meals for us basically, and it was just us, Jude and I, and we had to have a personal guard to make sure we didn't leave the property. And so I used to get him to come over at about 5 o'clock every afternoon. And
with the gnarly dudes.
And we'd get into the beer and wine, I'm not sure he was meant to, but...
Oh, wow. That's an incredible place to be stuck in a lockdown. For you now, I guess, what are you... I'm like, I don't know whether I say here about your age, because age is just an age, but you're in your 70s?
Yeah, I'm just about to be 75.
Okay, so. All right, mid-70s almost. What's the future look like for you? Like leading up to COVID, was it a different future? Were you looking at stepping aside or out of the business at all, or has that changed now with COVID?
Well, it's not necessarily my decision, of course, but...
the board?
Yeah, they have a project about succession, which is called it's named Weekend at Bernie's. So that's
of course it is.
Look, I'll play it by ear. I'm healthy, and I'm certainly enjoying it.
Right.
So still, and I suppose the first thing, and I think a lot of CEOs that were badly affected by COVID have the same thing. They really want to get the company and the business back to at least its state pre-COVID, and we've got what we call Journey to 2%. We've been working on for the last 18 months, nearly 2 years, and we're hoping to get there next year. And basically, all that is 2% of our TTV, or total sales, of profit before tax, and so. This is a real challenge to us, and as a global company, it's something that all of our leaders are focused on. So I certainly want to get there. There's no guarantee. This is an aspirational goal, but if we don't get it in 2024, 25, we certainly want to get it the next year or the next year, and hopefully all those years. But so. That's a very motivating thing. It's not just about the money, but it's about running a really good business, getting back to where we were pre-COVID. We've just got a fair way to go. We've got about 15,000 people now compared to 21 pre-COVID, but the business and the business models and where we're growing in has changed.
And what are you seeing now? What are the trends post-COVID?
Well, the areas that we're growing in do tend to be lower margin. For example, our independent, which is about to be renamed En Voyage Travel. It's grown to, I think this year its TTV will be about 1.3, 1.5 billion. So it's grown dramatically since pre-COVID. Also, we shut down Travel Money, which is our foreign exchange business, pre-COVID, and we thought we'd never reopen it. But about 15 months ago, we opened 2 or 3 shops, mainly in shopping centres.
Yeah, I seen them at Carindale the other day, actually. Yeah.
Well, we're now up to, I think they've opened their 88th shop in the last 18 months. So
is that Scotty back doing Travel Money? Yeah.
Scott's there, and he's done a great job. But, it is a low-margin business, but quite profitable. And so that the same with FCM, which is our major international FCM is our international corporate business, and we won a lot of business. Every year we were winning $1 billion or more in sales, even with COVID. Once they came back to trading normally. So, but it again is a reasonably low margin business. So the 2% is a significant challenge, and it's something that I think all my senior leadership team are really working towards.
That's incredible. And so is it fair to say, in listening to that, like for you, what keeps you motivated is having those goals? Like I just know my time here, there's always BHAGs, there's always goals, there's always big global targets people will be tracking to. How does it play for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I think if you get things right, the results will tend to follow. But, there's particularly in travel, there are always challenges. There's wars, the Middle East war now, even the Ukrainian war, inevitably has some negative impacts. But it is a challenge. It's overcoming those challenges and doing it with people who are friends and associates. So we, one of our core values, of course, is irreverence. And I prefer the irreverent fun because, business has got to be fun, or otherwise, why do it? If you're just there to make a lot of money or try to make a lot of money, to me, that's not where the fun comes in. The fun comes in by being successful for sure, but also enjoying that success with your people at work, and I think most people are pretty much the same.
Yeah, I agree, and it's so true. Like it's not just words on a wall here. It is genuinely the authentic culture and way of being. If you think back on your 40-odd years with Flight Centre in particular, or even the last 20-odd years, what are some of those moments that really make you smile and the fun times?
Oh, look, we mentioned touch footy, and we still play twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at midday. And that's now been going on a twice-week basis for 24 years.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, we have generally you just turn up and go into one team or another, and there's generally about 12 or 15 aside. But we do have the odd match, and we have an annual match. I can't give you exactly what they're called, but they're basically old boys versus the young
boys,
the young
people.
Boys.
Yeah, I think was it played recently?
Yeah, and I think the young guys. Well, someone asked us whether the young guys had ever won, and we couldn't remember. And
is that because you can't remember because you're the old guys, or?
Well, what I eventually said, the young guys reckon that they did win once. It's been going for 9 years, and they reckon they did win it once. And I said, oh, yeah, that's probably when I was playing for the young guys, which would have been a long time ago. The average, it's the over 40s or over 41s and the under 41s now.
Yeah, classic. Some good rivalry. So footy, that's highlights. What else? What are some others?
Oh, look, I think, it's one of the things, being a global travel company, we have to travel for work, and we try to make that fun as well as and over the years we've done plenty of different sorts of challenges and that, like doing various climbs, Mount Kinabalu, and various other ones, and so it is about doing work and getting things done and being successful, but it's also about not only developing people into leadership positions and that sort of thing, but people who, as you know, people who survive at Flight Centre, you don't survive if you can't fit in with whatever you're doing. And the leaders, particularly people who've been here a long time, generally they have a lot of friends and a lot of people. As I say, I get a lot out of the working with people, even when there's some pretty tough travelling schedules and that sort of thing. I don't know what I'll be like in 10 years' time.
We'll check back in. Have you, obviously you have seen a bit of the world. Is there any highlights of where you visited that you love?
Oh, look, over the years, I've spent a lot of time in London, and we've got a flat there at the South Bank in London, and I love going to London for a while. And Jo, our daughter, of course, lived there for 12 years until recently.
Yeah.
So it's always good to get back to London. It's certainly a second home for us. But in other terms, we've been to Paros quite a lot. Paros is an island near
in Greece.
Greece near Naxos.
Yeah.
And we're actually going in a month or so's time for a week. So that's it's the sort of thing as you get older. I think you like going back to places you really know, and maybe some new places as well. But I think going back to somewhere where and
you're going to have a good time. Yeah, beautiful. Is there anywhere on your want to go list?
It's been quite public that I've never been, and Jude has never been to Japan. So there is a bit of talk about us doing something there, because it is, really, it's such a popular destination, particularly from Australia.
Yeah, not that far away either.
No.
Yeah, beautiful. How's life changed for you personally, becoming a granddad? You've got 5 grandkids now?
Yeah, well, 5. Yeah, Matt's got 3 and Jo has 2. I'm not a very good grandfather, but
aren't you?
I will say Jo's daughters, Luca and Rudy, and they don't actually have a grandfather because he died when Scotty was quite young, so I'm their favourite. But on the other side of the fence, I'm definitely number 2.
Oh, classic. Well, maybe if I asked Jude the question, it'd be maybe a bit of a different perspective from Jude. Is she loving being a grandma?
Oh, yeah. Well, she, it's the same old thing. The more you put the time in and you get the rewards.
Yeah, beautiful. Skroo, I'm curious for you, what is that legacy when one day when you're 85, 95 and they wheel you out of here at 105, whenever the day is going to be, what is that legacy that you hope you leave behind with the people who have worked here, past and present?
Look, I think, whether now we've got a very established, as you know, culture and way of working. And COVID had a really unsettling impact on that at times. But coming through that, the sort of culture of ownership and really came through. And I think I think that we've still got a fair way to go to get back to where we were pre-COVID in some things, and certainly in your area, in terms of our overall training, particularly in leadership and that, a lot of these things had to lapse.
Yeah.
So getting back to that's going to be really important, and leaving that legacy of the culture that has been established over a long period, as you know, and it really comes from, I believe, from our Top Deck days, because in Top Deck, generally the trips were quite long, generally a minimum of 3 weeks up to 6 months. I know one of the overland drivers, Blue Ramsey, I remember him being away for 3 years without coming back. He'd come back to Calais, pick up another set of passengers and take them overland again. And so you can just imagine how being on the road for 3 years without coming back to the workshop or London makes people very self-reliant. And most of our people were crew in Top Deck. And the same thing happened when, people like you opened shops in Flight Centre, so that there wasn't a lot of support, particularly in the early days. But so people had to become very reliant, had to have a lot of ownership, a lot of in the game. They had to be right in the game, and so I think that's the legacy from our past that hopefully will live on.
Yeah, and I've heard you say in training sessions that I've run over the years and at conferences, words to the impact of, whether however long people stay at Flight Centre, that the hope and the wish or the intention is that when they leave here, they're better for the experience they've had and they've learned skills that will take them to that next chapter. And I get a bit choked up thinking about that to say this directly to you, because the last 3.5 years of then running my own business and starting this, not only the work doing the leadership development, but the understanding of the business systems, marketing, finance, knowing your product, looking after your people, all that. I learned all of that here. And I don't, there's not enough words to say thank you from me to you and what I've gained from my time here. It's just been phenomenal. And I know I'm not the only one. So, I think it's extremely special. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. The reality is too, during COVID, of course, we lost, as I say, about 15 or 16,000 people. And one of the worst things is, like they obviously got other jobs or own businesses, and they were so good at it that we had trouble getting them back. So now we've got to train up a whole new
train them too well.
But no, it is something I think we're all quite proud of, that it's generally well known that if someone's worked in Flight Centre for a reasonable amount of time, that they will be self-reliant and they will be very skilled at what they're doing. And I think a lot of people, and particularly in Australia, we've been here a long time, and we've had quite a large workforce for such a long time. So a lot of people have had their their early days in Flight Centre, and we wish them well. If we don't want them leaving too soon, but if they have 10 or 20 years here and then go on to another challenge, I think they'll be generally be very well equipped for that.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
like you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm going all teary, honestly, because I really, not a day goes by that I don't reflect on everything I've gained, the friendships, the business lessons, the value of the customer, everything. So, I'm extremely grateful. It's incredible coming back in here this morning. It just felt like a reunion, seeing everyone. What are you doing here? It's just wonderful. It feels like you're just back at home.
Touches on at midday if you want to come down.
I don't know that you'll want to invite me to that, but we definitely won't keep you from that. Skroo, if we had listeners who are newer business owners or people on their own leadership journey, as I guess your last words or some last takes from you, what are your top leadership tips, or what's most important to you, do you think, for young founders, business leaders?
Look, you could go on, because running a business, as you know, is reasonably complex. But there's a few basics. I think you've got to get the people right. You've got to have the right people on the bus, and possibly the wrong ones off it. I think that's really important. It is about people, and I know I don't know whether you've heard of Ken Allen. He wrote a book, Radical Simplicity, fairly recently, but from DHL, and he says, and I really agree with him, that it's one thing having a good strategy, a good plan, but in the end, he believes it's 90% of it's about executing your plan. It's easy, as you know, when we do a lot of planning in Flight Centre, but it's easy to have a plan and it looks good and it may be good plan, but if you can't execute it, you won't get the results. And as he said, 90% of a good plan is in execution, and 90% of executing is having the right people. And that, if you're going to sort of take away anything, I think that's really important when you're running a business. And you won't always get it all right.
Mm.
And I know, and I've probably said this to you at some stage at one of your training areas, is someone inevitably asks me, if you've got one piece of advice about business, about running a business, what would it be? And my only thing that I can say is just don't fuck it up.
I have heard that so many times. I think that is the most perfect way to end the conversation. Don't fuck it up. You heard it here, Skroo Turner. Skroo, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything in the past, and I really thank you for your time for our listeners. And yeah, it's been a pleasure sitting across the table in HQ with you today. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Cherie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on the Lead with Courage podcast. We illuminate leadership, and it's our mission to inspire and grow the leaders of today to create a better tomorrow. We hope and trust that this episode has given you some insights and joy to empower you to live your biggest, best life. If you did enjoy the episode, we'd be so grateful for you to rate and share wherever you listen to this podcast. And until next time, go and lead with courage. Illuminate Leadership is not a licensed mental health service or a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. Any conversation in this podcast is general in nature, and if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114.